I was raised in a quaint little village with my two siblings. The middle sibling is me. The fact that everyone there knows one another can be both a strength and a weakness. My father is the kind of man who puts in a lot of work but keeps his emotions locked behind an impenetrable wall. He's contemplating retirement now. My mother is his polar opposite, meticulously maintaining the house and clinging to traditional ideals she was taught growing up. They're my parents and I love them, but I've always felt this crushing weight of disappointment whenever they look at me, like I'm a calculation that never quite adds up. Meanwhile, my older brother reigns as the family's golden boy. At 40, he married a quiet, submissive woman who hangs on his every word. Their two sons are obsessed with aggressive sports, to put it mildly, they're absolute terrors. My brother seems to have appointed himself my life coach, treating me like some broken project he can't quite fix. His guidance always feels like thinly veiled bragging about his McMansion, luxury cars, and what he smugly calls his trophy wife. It only deepens my isolation. I was that sensitive kid who'd break down crying at school, always having some elaborate excuse for my failures. I wasn't tough or athletic, I was the kid nobody picked for teams, the one left out of birthday parties. Having asthma made me feel even more like an alien. The worst part? My parents dismissed it as barely an inconvenience. I've battled the darkness of depression for as long as my memory stretches back. I couldn't throw a football in a straight line if my life depended on it. My parents constantly made soul-crushing comparisons between me and my perfect older brother. School was a nightmare, I barely scraped by with a 2.5 GPA. After saving every penny, I enrolled in college but dropped out during my second year. That decision unleashed a family firestorm that still smolders today. My younger sister was the untouchable princess of the family. I don't know much about her adult life because I was already gone when she was a teenager. She's not terrible, just spoiled beyond reason. She often joins the chorus of disapproval, perhaps because it's easier than becoming a target herself. She had a fairy tale wedding at 19 and now has 3 kids. I see myself in her middle child, always getting mocked, always struggling to be seen. After college, I embraced my inner nerd with fierce pride. I worked at a comic book and video game store in my hometown for years before it shut down, a fact my family conveniently forgets, still acting like I work there. The silver lining was meeting another ambitious geek who became my business partner. Together, we launched an IT support company that took off like a rocket. Eventually, my partner decided to sell to a larger corporation. The buyout left me with substantial cash and stock options, more than I ever dreamed possible. I launched several side ventures and made investments that turned golden. I try not to broadcast it, but I'm sitting on over $1 million in assets. Currently, I'm the CTO at a promising private startup. Despite my wealth, I live modestly. My comfortable 2-bedroom house in a prime neighborhood is furnished with second-hand pieces, and I drive a 15-year-old Saturn. I'm single, my schedule is chaotic, and I see my therapist regularly. Like my depression and asthma, I struggle with drinking, something my family dismisses as all in my head. My parents expect me to make the pilgrimage to their Sunday night dinners without fail. They live on the opposite side of the state, the journey devours 90 to 120 minutes each way, swallowing half my weekend. They operate under the delusion that as a single mental case, my brother's favorite label, I have nothing better to do. These meals are psychological warfare, 3 hours of unsolicited advice on finding a wife, starting a family, and becoming a real adult, or endless monologues about my brother's latest car sale triumph that everyone treats like breaking news. While they've never directly called me a mooch, the accusation hangs in the air, thick and unspoken. If I dare miss a dinner, the guilt trips begin, leaving me confused and frustrated. I constantly question why I subject myself to this ritual humiliation. My family has a talent for minimizing or completely rewriting my accomplishments. My hometown still thinks I'm working at the game store that closed over a decade ago. My brother was always portrayed as more mature and sociable, with a real career. My retail experience became the punchline to every family joke. Explaining my actual life and achievements feels impossible. My genuine tech expertise gets dismissed as childish obsession with games and comics. When I try to talk about my work, my brother interrupts, spouting technical gibberish while everyone nods appreciatively. I usually just let him ramble on, terrified to correct him because I'd have to defend my knowledge and career. Deep down, I feared they wouldn't value my success, or worse, that it would change how they see me. Everything changed last month in a way I never could have predicted. My brother somehow got his hands on my personal information. The truth hit me like a sledgehammer. He'd hired a private investigator to run what he called a background check on my employment. I suspected he was organizing some kind of intervention with my parents, convinced I was living in squalor. What they discovered shattered their perception of me, my actual net worth, my executive position, my comfortable home. The irony? I work in security. I tracked the source of the breach after receiving alerts about unauthorized attempts to access my credit report. The pieces fell into place like a twisted puzzle. Now I'm dealing with my family's jarring shift in attitude. The sudden reverence feels almost more uncomfortable than the previous disdain. It's deeply unsettling, especially given our history of miscommunication and dismissal. Furious about the invasion of my privacy, I had the same detective agency investigate my brother's finances. The findings were explosive. He was drowning in debt, living a facade of success while juggling 3 mortgages and back taxes. The investigation uncovered CPS files, multiple DWI arrests, and domestic disturbance calls. His credit was in shambles. Meanwhile, my parents were exactly as they appeared, modest and pragmatic with money. I prepared for confrontation at the next family dinner, hoping for some dramatic showdown that would finally force a reckoning. But the atmosphere was nothing like I expected. My parents treated me with an eerie reverence, as if I'd suddenly transformed into their golden child. This shift visibly rattled my brother. Halfway through dinner, he snapped, desperately flaunting recent sales commissions and a supposed promotion. I smiled tightly and congratulated him, then calmly mentioned his IRS troubles and maxed-out credit cards. The room went silent. I'd exposed his financial disaster while outwardly praising his achievements. The moment was surreal. The family dynamic, already strained, became unbearably awkward. My parents' sudden change toward me felt forced and artificial. When I handed my brother a copy of the investigator's report, he denied everything, until I pointed out that by using the agency to investigate me, he'd unwittingly recommended them. That moment of realization on his face was almost worth all the years of torment. My parents reprimanded him with theatrical shock, though they clearly knew about the betrayal. The situation quickly spiraled as I realized the report required my social security number, a chilling violation. The revelation sparked a vicious argument, exposing my family's greed and cowardice. My contempt for them deepened with every passing minute. They began hurling accusations at each other while I tried to remain detached. When they turned their anger toward me, I responded with cold indifference, a shrug or a dismissive one-word answer. My sister's husband, my brother's wife, and their 5 children watched in horror as our family imploded like never before. Our gatherings were typically mundane. My sister would share updates, my brother and his wife would boast, my mom would make small talk, and my dad would grumble in response. But this collapse was unprecedented. Decades of buried resentments erupted to the surface as the usual subtle jabs about how I should be a real man like my brother were replaced by shocked silence. The argument between my dad, brother, and me dredged up 30 years of family grievances, with everyone frantically shifting blame. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion, horrifying yet impossible to look away from. All my negative perceptions of my family were validated in those heated moments. Truthfully, I felt sick rather than victorious. I realized I'd handled everything terribly. My brother's children now knew about his troubled past, something I never intended. When my brother screamed that I should have never been born, what struck me most was my parents' desperate attempts to calm him. They tried to intervene but never acknowledged how they'd treated me all these years. I felt simultaneously vindicated and devastated. Then came another shock. My parents accused me of refusing to help a sick niece or nephew, something I'd never been told about. I suspected they were fabricating stories in the moment, but instead of challenging them, I simply reminded them they still thought I worked at the comic shop that closed in 2011. Their revisionist family history disgusted me. I drove home feeling overwhelmed and betrayed. Now that they know about my money, I'm bracing for the financial pressure I've seen them exert on my brother. Yet I recognize they provided for my basic needs growing up. Navigating this maze of gratitude, bitterness, and boundaries will require professional help. Setting boundaries will be essential moving forward. Growing up was brutal. I was never the favorite child. My brother abused me, and my parents did nothing to stop it. When he kicked, hit, or said horrible things, they acted like nothing was wrong. Their dismissal of verbal abuse as harmless compounds the damage. I'm tired of fighting this battle. Though they're my family, I need permanent distance for my own well-being. I wish them the best, but I need to start a new chapter without them. Yet questions linger. What happens if I meet someone amazing? If we marry and have children, how will I navigate these family issues? How do I introduce a new family to my family if I'm not speaking to them? Before reading the update, let me give you some advice. Your family didn't appreciate you as a person. They kept you around to boost their self-esteem, and now they want your wealth. You're not defined by your family, they're the problem, not you. You seem like a good-hearted, hardworking person who endured cruel treatment. Put down your phone and continue building your life. Reduce contact with your family as you see fit, they only want your money now. Stay in therapy to help transition into a life where they don't hold you back. Consider relocating and starting fresh. When dating, explaining these dynamics to a potential partner might be challenging, but you'll build your own family when the time is right. Actions to take. Put a security freeze on your credit accounts. If your brother used dealership resources to gather information, report it. Consult an attorney if fraud was involved. Update your will. Your parents would currently inherit everything. Find a trusted counselor to help process grief over family estrangement. Update. After the family dinner explosion, I drove home across empty night roads, alone with my thoughts. Pulling into my driveway, I knew something had to change if I wanted to preserve my sanity. The Sunday dinner ritual had to end. For the next 2 weeks, I immersed myself in work and mental health. My house, filled with gadgets and comic books that others might mock, became my sanctuary. I increased my therapy sessions with Dr. Bennett, who helped me establish boundaries that felt more like building a fort than a wall. As weeks passed and temperatures rose, my thoughts drifted toward the future, specifically relationships. After time alone, I began to believe meeting someone special wasn't just possible but inevitable. Then, like something straight from a comic book, Ava appeared. We met at a technology conference where her cybersecurity presentation captivated me, not just the topic but her magnetic presence. She was brilliant, grounded, and understood me completely. Her view of family centered on love but was protected by firm boundaries. As things with Ava deepened, the unspoken question loomed: how to introduce her to my family circus. Over countless pizza nights, we strategized. We decided on short, visible, casual family gatherings. Everything shifted when Ava offered to help navigate these waters. Our initial interactions were simple coffee dates. With Ava beside me, I cautiously re-engaged with family gatherings. The first few times were excruciatingly awkward, my parents overly polite and wary, my brother struggling to express something but failing to find the words. My sister's children, especially her middle child who resembles me, provided welcome distraction and instantly connected with Ava. These coffee dates became brief forays into family territory, quick appearances without getting entangled in the dysfunction. This strategy allowed me to reconnect without being consumed by the chaos. Surprisingly, it began working. My family adapted to the arrangement, perhaps realizing this was the only way to keep me in their lives. They started respecting my boundaries, and as things improved, I considered the long term more seriously. With Ava, I envisioned building a family foundation based on respect and care rather than obligation and guilt. One summer evening, walking by the lake, Ava and I discussed moving in together. The contrast between feeling abandoned by my family and now standing confidently on my own felt like night and day. I maintained cautious optimism for the future, ready for potential challenges but prepared to face them. Setting boundaries after Ava entered my life became about more than self-protection. It created space for new connections and a fulfilling future. Sunday dinners still occur, but on my terms. I attend sometimes, skip others. When I bring Ava, we process any issues together afterward. Despite significant improvement, challenges remain. The secret lies in finding balance, maintaining harmony without being overwhelmed. Hi everyone, I'm still learning how to share stuff online, so please be patient with me.